Coming up next.
And what are your meals like at home when you're cooking for the family after a long day? Are you ever doing the run to fast food?
We get a lot of takeout.
Takeout from your restaurant.
The Job Talk podcast shares stories from people who are passionate and love what they do in their careers. Through conversation, we explore their careers, past work experiences, and the education that got them to where they are now. We are putting together a Career Crisis Ultimate interview series. We are asking experts to give their best advice and guidance around work anxiety, career pressures, career goal setting, and ultimately, career transformation. To learn more about this special interview series and get notified when it's available, please visit our webpage at thejobtalk.com/help.
Today's guest is Theo Psalios. Here's our Job Talk with the Restaurateur. Okay, Theo, I think my first question for you today is, were you always destined to become a chef and work in the culinary world?
It appeared that way. From as long as I can remember, when I was very little, I've always been surrounded by restaurants or immersed in restaurants.
Yeah.
And there was a long period of time where I told myself, I had this little story in my head that I will never, ever work in a restaurant or own a restaurant. And lo and behold, here we are.
Now, people that don't know, your dad is a famed restaurateur and chef. Could you talk a little bit about him?
Yeah, I mean, his story goes way back to when he was a teenager, going to, I think he left home when he was about 14 and went to hotel school. This is back in Cyprus, which is where our family is from. And he worked on the merchant ships and as a chief steward, so taking care of hosting the staff, taking care of the staff, the crew, I should say, on the boat. And I think 1975 is when he came to Canada and started his first restaurant back in Vancouver. And he's been in the restaurant business ever since.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into a huge story with him, but how did he end up in Edmonton?
Yeah. So he and my mom broke up or divorced when I was 2. So they were super young. And so he left Vancouver in the late 70s and moved to Edmonton in, I think, about 1980. And that's where he started his first restaurant. So since he's been in Edmonton since 1980 and he's had many restaurants since then.
After high school, did you go into culinary school, or did all of your training come from working with your dad and through restaurants?
All my training is through restaurants and through my dad. So a lot of things I've learned from him. Actually, it's also my mom, who still lives in Vancouver. Her ex-husband also had restaurants. So in my teen years, I was working there as well. And it was an Italian restaurant. It was a different cuisine. Yeah. But I've been surrounded by it for quite a few years now. So yeah, I guess you could say self-taught and learning from being in the restaurants. And there was times where I broke away and worked at other restaurants. I moved to Toronto in my mid-20s and worked at different restaurants there just to get to learn different cuisines, different work environments. And so, yeah, that's where my culinary experience comes from.
Do you speak Greek as well?
I do.
You do?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. I was going to say, because my dad emigrated from Denmark in 1962, and I think he looks at me with incredible disappointment that I don't speak Danish. So you're working in the culinary world. And so you come back to Edmonton. What year did you come back to Edmonton?
Well, first of all, I grew up in Vancouver with my mom, and I would come out here and visit every summer. The first time I worked in the restaurant, I was probably 10. And I was dishwashing for my dad at one of the restaurants. Actually, the restaurant that still exists on White Ave. And then I actually moved here in 2001 for a little while. Moved back to Vancouver. Then I came back, worked for in 2003. And then my dad wanted to open up a second restaurant for us together. And I felt like I wasn't ready to sort of steer that ship because I was 24. I didn't feel confident with what I knew. and I sold everything I had. I moved to Toronto kind of on a whim and thinking that, okay, I'll just find a job when I get there, a cooking job, and gain some more experience. It was actually quite difficult to find just a line cook job. It took me a whole week. And I ended up working for free for a brand new restaurant downtown Toronto for a week because they weren't quite open yet. And I said, I'll just work. You don't have to pay me. I'll work for free until you're open. And that's where I got my first job in Toronto. And then I turned 25 and I worked there for about 6-7 months. And then my dad said, hey, I found this other location in Edmonton. What do you think? And so after about 7 months working for this other restaurant, this high-end Italian restaurant in downtown Toronto, I felt I was ready. So that's when I decided to, okay, let's do this. And that's when I started my first restaurant in Edmonton. And that was 2004.
Oh, that's jumping into the fire.
Yeah.
I remember a reality television series that followed the restaurants that you guys owned in Edmonton.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? How many seasons were there of the show? Could you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, backing up a couple years. So we had a location, a restaurant location. This is before Toronto.
Yeah.
Where the whole family was working in this small restaurant. Do you want to know the location, or is that important?
Please. Yeah.
So we had the Greek restaurant on 124th Street called Koutouki.
Yeah.
It's very small, about 1,000 square feet. And the whole family, so my dad, my stepmom, my sister, myself, we're all working there. And this small little restaurant was very busy and it was super chaotic. Lots of fights, lots of action. And so this TV crew, a production company out of Edmonton called Destined Productions, they were regular customers of ours at the restaurant, and they had the idea of documenting a family-run restaurant. And I think they were looking at a couple family-run restaurants in the city, and they ultimately chose us to follow us around. And so when they started filming, we were just at that one location, and then it was kind of at the same period of time that they started filming is when we were getting ready to open up other locations. So that's when I was in the West End, and then we started spreading out, and then they were following us at the various locations.
So with the reality, I've never been on a reality series. I've been in front of cameras here and there. Do they ask you to make drama happen, or did that just come naturally? Because I think I remember a few episodes where there was some conflict between you and your dad. Does that sound?
Oh, well, that's always, and we do. There's no question we butt heads all the time.
Yeah.
Similar personalities. He gets very easily frustrated when you don't do things how he wants you to do them, even though he hasn't explained to you how he wants. He just magically expects you to do things a certain way, and then when you don't, he gets really upset. Anyhow, what they would do with the reality show is they would kind of check in on everybody and see what was happening, if there was any issues, any topics that are going on within the family, and if so, they'd get you together and try and bring that topic up or that issue and see what happens. Or they would just interview people independently in regards to that issue, and then you get these two separate sides.
Yeah.
Let the drama ensue.
So it wasn't necessarily manufactured. Did you get to a point where you weren't even knowing the cameras were there shooting you?
You certainly get used to it after a while. At first, you're incredibly conscious that they're right there behind you when you're trying to work. But after a while, you do get used to it. And then, there's certain things where, in TV, they need to have sort of a beginning, middle, and end with like a storyline, right? Like they can't just take just random footage and slap it together. So there was definitely certain parts or certain episodes, if you go back and watch it, where they had to sort of drum up a little story. So it's not like we're manufacturing facts, but it's, I can give you an example. And there was an episode when we went to Las Vegas for my brother-in-law's stag.
Yeah.
They had to well, that's kind of back to what I said. They couldn't just take random footage of us just partying in Vegas. So they had to come up with a storyline. So like, okay, well, how about you guys decide to have a contest while you're here? And that's what we did. And so there was all these sort of events during our stay there that we had to compete in. And then there was like a prize at the end.
How many seasons did it run for?
It was 2 seasons. It was, I think 13 episodes altogether. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think it helped your business?
Oh, for sure. In fact, some of the regrets I have is taking for granted how good that was for business, and not taking more advantage of that, or as a business owner. Yeah. So there's a couple things that would have changed with that. Yeah.
Let's say this media gig that I have right now doesn't work out. And I've often thought about teaming up with my incredibly talented sister-in-law and starting up a food truck. Yeah. And the idea would be to sell fancy gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work or not. What are we up against if we're going into the food truck business? How much do you have to invest into it? What are some of the legalities, insurance items? What are you looking at when you're creating a food truck?
Okay. Well, I would say the Coles Notes on it is it's not as great as you think it might be. Like it takes a lot of work, like a lot of physical hours to actually, make a buck. It's not as great as it once was, like at the beginning days when the scene was new in the city. It was more novel. So, it was busier. There was, the idea and there weren't very many food trucks. So at the beginning it was a lot better. Also with the city, that is not nearly as wonderful as it once was at the beginning. It's really painful now to go through all the permits, just to communicate with them and to go through all those avenues that you need to for the food truck, all the licensing and permits. That's not a happy journey.
Yeah. What kind of investment, like financial investment, are you looking at for like a basic food truck?
I would say anywhere between 50 to 100 to 150 if you want to get something super deluxe.
Okay, I'm not going to do this. It sounds way too much work, and I'm quite lazy.
And it's seasonal too, so you only have a few months to make money, and then you have to figure something out.
Yeah, are there quite a few food trucks in a city of Edmonton and areas about a little bit over 1 million people? Are there quite a few food trucks?
It seems that way now, and I'm out of the scene now. Like if I'm not too sure if we touched on the fact that we sold our food truck, we no longer have one.
Yeah.
But so I've seen a lot that I don't recognize, and I've seen in the last 10 years a lot of one and done. Yeah, you see them 1 year and then they disappear.
It's like any business. That leads us into. Could you talk to us about what you're doing right now?
Sure. So we started as a food truck in 2012, and then that kind of parlayed into a brick and mortar takeout shop that we have now. When we had the food truck, we were paying rent basically in a commissary kitchen that we were only using 6 to 8 months out of the year. So I'm thinking, well, why not lease a space that will generate revenue all year round that you can also use as a commissary for the food truck? Well, that space now that we're doing takeout out of is actually quite busy, where the food truck, we just weren't taking it out as much as we once were because we're focusing more on the brick and mortar.
And so you take out food and you're also doing catering as well?
Yeah, and lots of catering. Yeah. So we're post-pandemic here a year, so the catering disappeared for a couple of years, and now it's, bounced back, kind of doubled, sort of making up for lost time, which is great.
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, were you a dine-in service at that time? Did you have a restaurant that was dine-in?
Nope. We were takeout from the very beginning, and so we were kind of designed for it.
I was going to say, what were your sales like throughout the pandemic? Like, did you see, not having an actual in dining experience, you were set up for what kind of the world went to for food takeout? We
were, our sales doubled from pre to post, or pre to during pandemic rather. And we had to do some evolving just to to evolve with the growth of the business so suddenly. So, with online ordering, just our setup, our menu. So the menu was doing some evolving, like same items, but serving them in a different way. And we were set up for it. And I felt guilty at times. People were like, "How's business?" Thinking we're a restaurant, so we were hurting. And I was like, "Oh, actually pretty good."
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were suffering at the time, but it was a good bump for us. It was good.
Yeah. I always love talking to people where you have a passion as being a chef, but you're also a business owner, and the day-to-day operations kind of takes you away from what you're passionate about. Are you passionate about the business operation side of things, or is it just kind of the reality you're in?
You know what? I am. Like, it's when it's your little business project that you've been working on for so many years, I become passionate about it, where I constantly want to nurture it and constantly want to see it grow, and constantly thinking about what I can do to, move the needle.
Yeah.
And it's not just the food. A lot of it comes down to like nurturing the customers. I really want to please the customers. That's what I really get passionate about. And that's through food and the service and building the relationships with the customers. That's really what I'm passionate about. The food's just sort of a vehicle.
Can you talk a little bit about your day-to-day, an average day for you?
Yeah. It starts early in the morning. It's still such a small business that I'm off, and it's like a sole proprietorship, which I can lead into later, that we're trying to grow out of, where I still need to be hands-on, because we're not quite big enough that I can totally step away and hire, sort of a kitchen manager. Or part of that is the staffing issue in the labor market right now is not awesome. But my day to day starts with me going in, at 7 a.m. and I start prepping for the day. It's kind of, our operation is similar to a bakery in the way that, we prep a lot of things ahead of time and then get them ready to serve. And when we run out, we run out. Some things we can replenish, but it's a lot of prep beforehand, and then we sell throughout the day.
Do you have any supply chain issues? I know that's a big thing for a lot of industry.
Oh yeah, we sure have. Yeah, there's many items have disappeared for 3 months at a time. Like main item, lamb is really popular on our menu, a main staple, and it was disappeared. It was unavailable for I think 3 or 4 months last summer.
Yeah. And are you getting any ingredients straight from Greece?
Well, yeah, we don't order ourselves. We don't get them straight from Greece, but they're Greek imported products. Oh yeah, olive oil, like herbs, the spices. There's lots of things. That we get from Greece. Yeah.
And then you're obviously probably buying off of local as well.
There's certain things I have to go through my head. Like there's some cheeses that we get locally. Some of our proteins we get locally. And you get it's like a mixed bag of where you can get it, best quality products, and it has to be affordable as well. Otherwise, the business part doesn't make sense.
What do you love most about what you're doing? If that question is given to you, what gets you up in the morning?
Well, I think that goes back to what I was saying before. What I'm passionate about is I like the relationship. I love dealing with the customers, the relationships that we build with the customers. We have lots of regular clientele that come in, and we joke and we ask each other about our day or our week, and I just like taking care of them. It's like it's similar to the restaurant where you're hosting people on a daily basis. Except they're not dining in, but I'm there to give them the best food that we can, and I want them to go home and enjoy the meal that we prepared. And I really mean that sincerely. Like it's, we really try to make every dish as best and tasty and healthy as possible.
And what are your meals like at home when you're cooking for the family after a long day? Are you ever doing the run to fast food?
We get a lot of takeout.
Takeout from your restaurant.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Actually, my family gives me a hard time because I don't bring it home enough. Because I mean, you're cooking and you're seeing and you're dealing with the same food every single day. That I don't think of bringing it home to eat for myself personally. But then my family gives me a hard time.
Is your dad still around? Is he still?
He is.
Yeah.
Long
And
story.
is he out of it completely retired
No.
or
Oh no? No. He was, if anybody that knows him will know that he actually moved down to Palm Springs for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
But he has just recently moved back to Edmonton, where he is set to open up his 20th restaurant in a matter of weeks.
Wow. Are you going to be involved with that at all?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. I have another question with that, but
I say
Sorry.
that with love. I say
Yeah.
that with love. No, it's better that way, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna have to go and try to find this the series that you were on to see if there was a conclusion to it.
My
But
dad has a whole box of DVDs.
oh, does he? That he hands out to friends and family. I love it. Supply chain issues aside, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're experiencing day to day?
The day to day. Oh, I mean, it's probably on more of a macro level. It's staffing issues, as far as there's not many, people out there that are taking up the jobs. And if you can just see on social media, in the service sector, or anybody that's advertising or owns a restaurant is trying to find staff, and that's showing that there's just a real shortage for the service industry. And I've been seeing it, in the news headlines as well. So I think it's across the country.
Yeah.
So that plays a part where you're just constantly trying to fill holes in the schedule, especially when you start getting busier and busier, and it's hard on the people that are working, yourself, and everybody's getting a little tired. So that's one thing. The food cost has been relentless in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Constantly increasing, and you have to. I hate raising my prices, but you have to find that really thin line of where you're not going to be scaring your customers away, but you still need to, make a living and keep the business open. So that's been a real big struggle, and it's with the food and the paper products, especially for us. So it's all takeout, and those paper products they've gone up like 30% in the last year, and that's a major, yeah.
Are you optimistic that things are going to improve, or is it just going to keep going the way it is?
It has to level off eventually. Like, it has to plateau. It feels like it kind of has in the last few months. I haven't seen any. Hopefully, those big jumps at the beginning of this year are the last we'll see for a while. I hope.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm always optimistic. And for our business, the good thing about it is it's so small, it's nimble, it's flexible. We've just been adapting for the last 5 years, and we keep coming out ahead. Knock on wood. Hopefully that keeps happening. And we're just grinding away, trying to figure out how to send our kids to college.
Yeah. I'm building a library of interviews with occupations from across the board, huge variety. What I like about the culinary world, you're not really looking at having to go to school for 10 years, like if you were in the medical field and you were trying to specialize. But do you have any advice you could offer somebody who loves to cook? Maybe they don't do it as their day job, but they've always been curious about getting into the culinary world. Do you have any advice for somebody looking to enter that?
Well, if you're a young person, what I would do, so things when I look back and things I wish, it would have been fun to do it this way. I would have gone to take my degree, my culinary degree, and then I would have traveled with it and try to find jobs. They call them stage, which is you kind of work for free, but at really, really high-end restaurants around the world, and you find places to do that. And I think that would be just an amazing amazing experience. And you may find one restaurant in one city that really speaks to you, and you may stay there and have a wonderful experience. I think that's would have been something to be cool to have done if I was when I was younger. So that's the kind of thing, like if you're, you know, a single, you're still trying to figure what you want to do with your career, that's the way to do it. If you already have an established career and you're thinking about moving into the culinary arts, I would say no.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah. And that's a fair statement. And they should think about that.
I would keep, you know, try to find a career that's not making you miserable. And then I would take some culinary classes. There's so many classes that you can do sort of part-time, and you can learn a lot from them. Yeah. And just, you know, you have to eat every day, so you're going to be able to have fun with your hobby often, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I would do if you're already established with the job.
For sure. Do you have kids?
Yeah, we have three kids.
Yeah. Are any of them showing interest in going into the family business?
It's funny. Yeah, one of them says that she'd really like to do it. She'd like to be a vet and a baker, and she wants to do both. So, yeah, that's kind of cool. I guess it's hard to make a really good living in the culinary arts. I mean, unless you go into become a restaurateur, right, and you become a successful restaurateur, it's so risky though. Yeah. You know, so I guess in this, for the sake of protecting my kids, I'm like, no, go do something safe, make a nice living. Yeah. And then everybody's happy.
Medicine, law.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Those are the first two. What are your plans for the future here? Are you going to continue doing the same thing, or do you have some big ideas that you're going to try to do?
Well, I may have touched upon it before, but we've been getting busier and busier year over year, and we're trying to work on how to grow the business, what that next step might look like. I don't know, maybe a second location. I just want to do it, make sure we're doing it properly and soundly. So it's a constant work in progress, of, getting all your systems nailed down so that when you do open up a second location or you expand into something larger, that you're well planned for it. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get bigger and bigger, but
awesome.
Conservatively.
Yeah. All right. Well, Theo, I wish you all of the luck in the world moving forward. And I just want to thank you for giving us some time today.
Hey, my pleasure. It's happy to be here.
Thank you for tuning in to the Job Talk podcast. For more information, please visit us at thejobtalk.com. Our podcast music was created by our friend Mike Malone in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.